You know what nobody tells you about divorce? Your ex-wife is about to walk straight into a psychological minefield that she spent years convincing herself doesn't exist. And I'm not talking about some karma fantasy where she suddenly realizes what she lost and comes crying back. No, this is something much deeper, much more brutal. It's about what happens when someone trades certainty for illusion and watches that illusion crumble piece by piece. Let me paint you a picture right now as you're watching this. There are millions of men sitting in their empty apartments, scrolling through their ex's Instagram, watching her post quotes about new beginnings and living her best life. And these men are torturing themselves, thinking she's out there thriving while they're drowning. But here's what's actually happening behind those filtered photos and motivational captions. She's about to collide with a reality so harsh that her brain will literally rewire itself just to cope with the cognitive dissonance. See, when a woman leaves a marriage, especially one that lasted years, she's not just leaving you. She's leaving an entire psychological ecosystem that she doesn't even realize exists. Think about this for a second. For however long you were together, you were her reference point for everything. Every decision, every emotion, every plan for the future had you somewhere in the equation. Even when she was complaining about you to her friends, you were still the center of her psychological universe. And now she's floating in space without gravity, trying to convince herself that weightlessness is freedom. But let's get specific about what actually unfolds, because the pattern is so predictable it's almost mathematical. The first phase is the honeymoon with herself. This lasts anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. She's high on her own decision. Every morning she wakes up and mentally congratulates herself for being so brave, so strong, so independent. She redecorates the house, starts that yoga class she always talked about, maybe downloads a dating app just to see what's out there. Her friends are feeding her validation like it's cocaine. You look amazing, you're glowing, you deserve so much better, and she believes it. God, does she believe it? During this phase, she's not actually living in reality. She's living in a story she's telling herself about reality. The story where she's the heroine who escaped from mediocrity, where endless possibilities are waiting just around the corner. Her phone is buzzing with matches and messages. Men are giving her attention she hasn't felt in years. She interprets this as evidence that she made the right choice. What she doesn't realize is that she's mistaking quantity for quality, attention for intention, and novelty for value. Then comes phase 2, and this is where things get interesting. The awakening, though, it's more like a slow-motion car crash. It starts with small things. She goes on her first real date since the divorce. The guy seems perfect on paper. Good-looking, successful, says all the right things. They have dinner, maybe drinks. Everything seems to be going well. Then, at the end of the night, he makes his move, and suddenly she realizes something that hits her like a bucket of ice water. This man doesn't actually care about her. Not really. He doesn't know that she's scared of thunderstorms, or that she can't sleep without checking the doors locked 3 times, or that she cries during that one commercial with the dogs. To him, she's just Friday night, and that's when the first crack appears in her narrative. But she pushes through because admitting doubt now would mean admitting she might have made a mistake, and that's psychologically unbearable. So she doubles down. More dates, more apps, more nights out with the girls. Except now something's different. The attention doesn't feel quite as intoxicating. The compliments feel hollow. She starts noticing things. How these men talk about their ex-wives, how they interact with waiters, how quickly they try to escalate things physically. And slowly, without even realizing it, she starts comparing them to you. Not consciously, mind you. Consciously, she's still maintaining the story that you were the problem. But subconsciously, her brain is doing what brains do. It's pattern matching, it's comparing and contrasting. That guy who seems so charming, he talks over her constantly. The one with the great job. He's emotionally unavailable. The fun, spontaneous one. He's actually just irresponsible and drinks too much. And with each comparison, you start looking better in hindsight. Not because you were perfect, but because you were known, you were safe, you were home. This is when phase 3 kicks in. The panic. It's usually around the 6 to 8 month mark. The novelty has completely worn off. Her friends are tired of hearing about her dating adventures. Her kids, if you have them, are acting out because their world has been shattered. and she's been too busy finding herself to notice. She's exhausted from keeping up the performance of being happy because that's what it is now, a performance. Every "I'm living my best life" post takes more effort. Every smile in public feels heavier. She's an actress who's forgotten why she took the role. The panic manifests in different ways. Some women go into overdrive, becoming almost manic in their pursuit of validation. More dates, more activities, more anything to avoid sitting still with their thoughts. Others retreat, spending entire weekends in bed, scrolling through old photos, trying to figure out where everything went wrong. But they all share one thing in common. They start rewriting history. The marriage that was so terrible. Maybe it wasn't that bad. You, the person she couldn't stand to be around? Maybe she was too harsh. The future she was so sure about. Maybe she miscalculated. And here's where it gets really psychological. She can't just admit she made a mistake that would destroy her entire sense of self. She spent months, maybe years, building an identity around being the woman who was brave enough to leave. Her entire social narrative is constructed on this foundation. So instead, she does something fascinating. She creates a new story. One where maybe you've changed, maybe you've grown, maybe if things were different now, it could work. This allows her to entertain the idea of reconciliation without admitting she was wrong. Meanwhile, let's talk about what's happening in the dating world she's navigating. Because this is where reality really bites. The dating pool for a divorced woman, especially one with kids, is not what romantic comedies would have you believe. The men who are interested fall into a few predictable categories. There are the players who see her as an easy target, someone vulnerable and eager to feel desired. There are the married men looking for affairs who conveniently forget to mention their wives until several dates in. There are the perpetually single guys who are single for very good reasons she's about to discover. And yes, there are some genuinely good men, but they're either taken or have options, lots of options. And she's competing with women who don't come with the baggage of divorce and children. She starts to realize something terrifying. The market value she thought she had doesn't exist. All those matches on dating apps, they're mirages. They match with everyone. Those compliments about how beautiful she is, they're copying and pasting them to dozens of women. That chemistry she felt. He feels it with anyone who's willing to sleep with him. The harsh economics of dating after divorce hit her like a professional boxer. She's not special. She's not unique. She's just another profile among thousands. Phase 4 is the reckoning. This usually happens around the 1-year mark, though it can take longer for women who are particularly stubborn or particularly good at self-deception. The reckoning is when the psychological defense mechanisms finally fail. She can't maintain the story anymore. The loneliness is crushing. Not the kind of loneliness where you wish someone was around, but the existential kind where you realize you've blown up your entire life for a fantasy that doesn't exist. She'll be sitting in her apartment one night, maybe after another disappointing date or another weekend where the kids are with you, and it will hit her all at once. The magnitude of what she's done, the irreversibility of it, the fact that she traded a flawed but real relationship for a perfect but imaginary one. And the weight of this realization is so heavy that some women literally can't process it. Their brains shut down the emotional centers just to survive it. This is when the late night texts start. You know the ones, they usually come between 11:00 p.m. and 2:00 a.m. They start casual. Hey, how are you? Or I was just thinking about that time but what she's really saying is, I'm drowning, and you're the only life jacket I remember. Sometimes they're angry texts blaming you for things that happened years ago because anger is easier than regret. Sometimes they're sad texts, reminiscing about good times, testing to see if there's still a connection. But they all mean the same thing. The grass wasn't greener. It was artificial turf. But here's what's really happening in her brain during all of this. She's experiencing cognitive dissonance at a level that's actually changing her neural pathways. Every day, her brain has to reconcile two incompatible truths. I made the right decision leaving, and I'm miserable, and everything is worse now. The psychological stress of maintaining these contradictory beliefs is literally exhausting. It affects her sleep, her appetite, her ability to concentrate. Some women develop anxiety disorders, others fall into depression. Many develop a kind of emotional numbness where they can't feel anything deeply anymore because feeling would mean confronting the truth. Let me tell you about the Sunday night syndrome. It's this phenomenon where divorced women have their worst moments on Sunday nights. Know why? Because Sunday night is when the performance ends. The weekend is over. The distractions are gone. The kids are asleep or at your place. Tomorrow is Monday and another week of pretending everything is fine. And in that quiet moment, usually between getting ready for bed and actually falling asleep, the truth creeps in. She's alone. Really alone. Not independent, not free, not empowered, just alone. And the universe has a cruel sense of humor about this because right around the time she's reaching peak regret, you're probably starting to heal. You've gone through your own phases, the shock, the anger, the sadness. But men typically process divorce differently. We internalize, we rebuild, we focus on action rather than emotion. So by the time she's realizing what she's lost, you've already started becoming someone new, someone better, someone who learned from the marriage and the divorce, someone who, ironically, might have been the man she wanted you to be all along. This creates a psychological torture chamber for her because now she can see the version of you she always said she wanted, but it's too late. You achieved it without her because of losing her, and the knowledge that she catalyzed your improvement but won't benefit from it. That's a special kind of hell that keeps her up at night. Let's talk about what happens with her social circle during all this. Because women's friendships, especially around divorce, are fascinating from a psychological perspective. Initially, her friends are her cheerleaders. They rallied around her, told her she deserved better, helped her create the narrative that leaving was brave and right. But as months pass, dynamics shift. Her married friends start to distance themselves, not consciously, but instinctively. She's now a threat, a reminder that marriages end. A single woman who might attract their husband's attention. The invitations to couples dinners stop coming. The group chats move on without her. Her single friends, the ones she thought would be her new tribe. They're competition now. They're all fishing in the same limited pond, and friendship becomes secondary to survival. Plus, she's not really single like them. She has baggage, history, kids, maybe. She's in a different category, and everyone knows it, even if no one says it. So her social world, which was supposed to expand after divorce, actually contracts. She finds herself with fewer real friends than ever before. The loneliness compounds. The support system she counted on reveals itself to be conditional and fair weather. And she realizes something terrifying. You weren't just her husband. You were her best friend, her emergency contact, her default +1, her safe space. And she threw it all away for what? For the idea that something better was waiting. Here's a psychological truth that nobody talks about. Women who leave marriages, especially long ones, often develop phantom relationship syndrome. Just like amputees feel phantom limbs, divorced women feel phantom relationships. She'll catch herself turning to tell you something funny that happened, then remember you're not there. She'll hear your voice in her head commenting on things throughout the day. She'll wake up and for a split second forget you're gone, then have to relive the loss all over again. This isn't love necessarily, it's neurological. Her brain spent years wiring itself around your presence, and those neural pathways don't just disappear. The universe seems to conspire to remind her of what she's lost. Your song comes on the radio. She finds one of your old t-shirts in the laundry. The kids say something exactly the way you would. She goes to that restaurant you loved and realizes food doesn't taste the same without someone to share it with. These aren't just memories. They're psychological anchors that drag her back to the reality she's trying to escape. And then there's the mathematical problem of finding someone new. Let's be honest about the numbers. If she's 35 or older, divorced, possibly with kids, looking for a serious relationship with a quality man who's also single, emotionally available, financially stable, attracted to her, and willing to take on another man's family, the statistical probability is brutal. Add in her own standards and preferences, which haven't adjusted to her new market reality. And you're looking at odds that would make a lottery ticket seem like a good investment. But she can't admit this, not to others, and especially not to herself. So she creates coping mechanisms. She lowers her standards while telling herself she's being more open-minded. She accepts treatment she never would have before while calling it going with the flow. She tolerates disrespect and frames it as not sweating the small stuff. Each compromise chips away at her self-esteem, but the alternative, admitting she made a catastrophic mistake, is psychologically unbearable. Some women enter the renovation phase. They suddenly become obsessed with self-improvement. But not the healthy kind, the desperate kind. New hair, new body, new style, new personality even. They're trying to become someone else. Someone who might be more successful in this new reality. But it's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The problem isn't how she looks or acts. The problem is that she fundamentally miscalculated what was available versus what she had. The really tragic ones are those who get into rebound relationships quickly and try to force them to be serious. They meet someone, anyone, who shows interest and immediately try to recreate what they had with you. They introduce them to the kids too quickly. They push for commitment before trust is established. They ignore red flags because being with someone problematic feels better than being alone. These relationships always implode, usually spectacularly, leaving her even more damaged than before. And through all of this, you're the ghost that haunts everything. Not because you're doing anything, but because you're the standard, whether she admits it or not. Every man gets compared to you. Not the you she divorced, but the idealized version of you that her regret has created. The you that exists in her memory is better than you ever were in reality. And no one can compete with a ghost that she's perfected in hindsight. Here's what happens next, and this is where this psychology gets really dark. Around the 2-year mark, sometimes sooner, sometimes later, she faces a choice. She can either admit the truth and try to make amends, possibly attempting reconciliation, or she can double down on the lie and reshape her entire personality around it. Most choose the second option. It's easier. They become bitter, cynical. They join online groups that reinforce their choices. They become the women who tell other unhappy wives to leave, not because it's right, but because misery loves company and they need others to validate their choice. The ones who choose honesty face a different challenge. How do you approach someone you've hurt that deeply? How do you admit you were wrong when you've built an entire identity around being right? How do you ask for forgiveness when you're not even sure you deserve it? The psychological weight of this is crushing. Many women report that the hardest thing they've ever done wasn't leaving. It was admitting they shouldn't have. But wait, there's another layer to this psychological unraveling that most people never talk about. It's what happens to her sense of identity at the cellular level. See, when you're married for years, your identity isn't just you anymore. It's you as part of us. Every decision she made, from what to cook for dinner to where to vacation, was filtered through the lens of being a wife. Her neural pathway is literally formed around this identity. And when she leaves, she's not just losing you, she's losing who she was with you. And that creates an identity crisis that psychology textbooks don't adequately cover. Think about the small things she never had to think about before. Which side of the bed to sleep on when the whole bed is empty? What to watch on Netflix when there's no one to compromise with? Where to eat when every restaurant reminds her she's eating alone? These seem trivial, but they're death by 1,000 cuts to her psyche. Every tiny decision becomes a reminder that she's navigating life without a co-pilot, and she fired him. The financial reality is another psychological hammer that drops around month 9. Divorce is expensive. Being single is expensive. That dual income that made life comfortable gone. Now she's trying to maintain the same lifestyle on half the resources, but it's not just about money, it's about what money represents. Security, stability, the ability to dream about the future without checking the bank balance first. She traded financial partnership for financial independence. But independence without resources isn't freedom. It's just decorated poverty. And here's something nobody prepares her for: the physical touch deficit. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about the 1,000 small touches that happen in a marriage. The hand on the lower back while passing in the kitchen. The feet touching under the covers. The automatic hug when someone's had a bad day. Touch is a human need as real as hunger or thirst. And suddenly she might go days, weeks without meaningful human contact. Her body starts to rebel. Stress hormones spike. Sleep becomes elusive. Her immune system weakens. She's literally becoming sick from skin hunger. But she can't admit it because that would mean admitting she needs what she rejected. The dating apps become a special form of psychological warfare. She's reduced to a set of photos and a bio competing with women 10 years younger who don't have stretch marks or emotional baggage, or bedtimes dictated by school schedules. The algorithms are brutal. They show her to everyone at first, that dopamine hit of matches and messages. Then, as the app learns she's selective or maybe too old or maybe too complicated, her profile gets buried. The matches slow to a trickle. The messages become lower quality. She realizes she's become invisible in a marketplace that only values youth and availability, neither of which she has anymore. Some women develop performance exhaustion. They've been performing happiness for so long that they forget what genuine emotion feels like. Their smiles become reflexive, not reflective. Their laughter sounds hollow even to them. They post about living their best life while crying in their cars after dropping the kids at school. The gap between their public persona and private reality becomes so wide that they feel like they're living a double life. And maintaining that double life is exhausting. It's like being an undercover agent in your own existence. This creates the final psychological torture. Regret without redemption. Awareness without action. She knows what she lost. She knows it was her choice. And she knows it's irreversible. She has to live with this knowledge every single day. Every happy couple she sees is a reminder. Every romantic movie is salt in the wound. Every wedding anniversary that passes without celebration is a monument to her miscalculation. And then there's the moment. It always comes when she sees you happy. Maybe it's a photo on social media. Maybe it's running into you at the store. Maybe the kids mention how much fun they had with you and your new girlfriend. And in that moment, something breaks inside her that can never be fully repaired. Because your happiness is proof that the problem wasn't the marriage. It was her perception of the marriage. You're capable of happiness. You're capable of love. You're capable of being the man another woman wants, which means you were always capable. She just couldn't see it. Or worse, she saw it but wanted more. This is the final psychological blow. The realization that she didn't leave a bad relationship. She left a relationship she made bad in her own mind, and now she has to live with that knowledge forever. Watching from the sidelines as you build the life she convinced herself was impossible, just with someone else who appreciated what she couldn't. The cruelest irony. Many of these women eventually realized that the problems in the marriage weren't entirely about you or even mostly about you. They were about her dissatisfaction with herself that she projected onto the relationship. The restlessness, the feeling that something was missing, the sense that life should be more exciting. Those were internal issues that leaving you didn't solve. In fact, leaving you just made them worse because now she has to face them alone without the stability and support you provided. So what actually happens to your wife after divorce? She gets exactly what she asked for. Freedom, independence, the chance to start over, and she discovers that what she asked for and what she wanted were two completely different things. She wanted to feel alive again, but she feels dead inside. She wanted excitement, but she got chaos. She wanted to be desired, but she became disposable. She wanted better, but she got different. And different isn't always better. Sometimes different is just different. And sometimes, more often than anyone wants to admit, different is worse. The ultimate psychological revelation that hits these women, usually years later, is this. They didn't leave you because you weren't enough. They left because they thought they deserved more. But deserving and getting are two different things. The market doesn't care what you think you deserve. Reality doesn't adjust to your expectations. And by the time they figure this out, the chance to fix it has usually passed. That's the truth about what happens to your wife after divorce. Not the Instagram version, not the story she tells her friends, not even the story she tells herself, but the real raw psychological unraveling that happens when someone trades a flawed reality for a perfect fantasy and discovers that the fantasy was the biggest lie they ever told themselves.